Alright, so this is part 3 of our Muslim World Unit. Today we'll be looking at Muslim culture and the Islamic Golden Age. So the last group of people that ruled the Islamic world we talked about were the Abazids. Their rule was very prosperous. They were very rich, and they pulled riches in from all over the world, Europe, Asia, Africa, which is pretty much the known world to them. They built huge cities and they supported advancements in math, art, and science. They began to preserve and advance knowledge, and they began blending international cultures together for the first time with the Islamic world. All right, Muslim cities. So we have Damascus, which was the capital of the Umayyad Caliphate, but although Baghdad is technically the capital, has huge palaces, huge defenses, and a giant marketplace, and peaked at 1 million. Despite that, Damascus is the cultural center. It's going to be where all the arts and sciences take place. But we also have other impressive cities of the Abbasid Caliphate. We have Cordoba, we have Cairo, and Jerusalem are all impressive cities during this time. So like here's a picture of Damascus today. Looks kind of like a city in Star Wars. Alright, so there are 4 social classes for Muslims. So the first class are those that are Muslims at birth. Second class is for converts to Islam. And third class is the protected people, which includes Christians, Jews, and Zoroastrians. The reason Zoroastrians is because as the Persians began to convert, not everyone resisted it, so it was kind of Zoroastrianism has been around a long time. And many people who worshipped Islam before that worshipped were Zoroastrians. Okay, and then of course the fourth class is slaves. These include typically prisoners of wars and any other non-Muslims. So remember, if you're not, you couldn't be a part of this empire and be a Hindu or a Buddhist. You'd probably be put into slavery. All right, the role of women. The Quran states that men and women are equal, but submit to men. Okay, what does that mean? Um, well, it's kind of complicated. So let's say, women have the same rights, especially in like government and stuff like that. But a woman is expected to listen to her husband. Anyway, but they are given rights under the Sharia for marriage. Women do have their own rights for family and property. And originally, women are able to advance based on their husband's status. But as time passes, women become more and more isolated in the Muslim world and are forced to wear a veil in public. The idea is that only the husband is allowed to see the woman's true face. All right, scholarship and knowledge is going to grow during this time. Push for knowledge was great, so science, math, astronomy, advancements, translate scientific and philosophical text from all throughout the known world. Thanks to Muslims, the library, they keep all the teachings of the Greeks and the Romans for the rest of the world to remember. And we have, in the early 800s, an academy and a library called the House of Wisdom. And where they go and they translate as many ancient texts as they can find into Arabic, which is the language that people who practice Islam speak and worship. All right, literature and art. We talked about the important the roots that the Arabians have with the Bedouins, but the Quran is still considered the gold standard. So one of the things they do is that they adapt the artistic traditions based on the areas where they conquer to suit the Islamic beliefs. This way they can discourage images of living things. Okay? They also began using calligraphy, which is a type of beautiful handwriting, as a substitute. Sometimes the decorative woodwork, which is what this is up here. All right, that's a type of calligraphy. And you could find these in wood, glass, etc. Architecture. When it comes to architecture, the Muslims really take everything that was great about everything else in the world and makes their cities grand with that. They built huge mosques in cities like Damascus, where they originally had built on the site of a Christian church, and it has a very Byzantine look to it. We'll talk about Byzantine art, and it has works of they take works of the Romans and other European cultures and adapt it to themselves and create these magnificent structures like this one down here. Here's, for example, the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem, which is a mosque, a beautiful building with a gold-plated dome. Medical advancements. We have Al-Razi. He was considered the greatest physician in the world because he invented the encyclopedia. He he wanted to create a book where he took all the medical knowledge from the ancients and put it in one book that could be sent around so other people could read it and learn how to treat other people. He also was the first one to write a book based on his findings on advances on treating people with smallpox and measles. And he found that the best way to treat that is that if you want to recover their breathing, you got to give them cleaner air. All right, math and science. So the standard for mathematical solutions, scientific observations and experimentation. Scientists begin solving problems with experiments instead of just logical reasoning. Is that better? Well, based on the fact that that's what scientists use today, you got to have an experiment. The Muslims were the first to do that. We also get the first written algebra textbook was written by Muhammad al-Khwarizmi, and he takes some of the Indian teachings. Who algebra was invented by the Indians, but it was and kind of introduced around the world, but there was never really a formal teaching written down, and al-Khwarizmi did that. Um, the Muslims began charting the stars. They charted comets. They began studying the movement of the planets. Um, and then we have a guy that had a theory on sight. His name is Ibn al-Haytham, and al-Haytham is going to lead his theory to the development of telescopes and microscopes, which is pretty cool. Philosophy and religion. So one of the things we see is scholars start blending Islam with Greek philosopher teachings. So they study Socrates, Aristotle, and Plato, the great Greek philosophers. And a lot of people criticize them. And they said we could still. They said they argue like we're still Muslims. We still worship Allah. All we're doing is searching for the truth about the world, and that's what they were doing. And so that's why they kind of take some of their ideas and put it to their everyday life as well. Um, we also see the first man who's actually a Jewish philosopher living in this Abazid caliphate, and his name was Moses ben Maimon. And one of the things that we talked about was how just because you were a people of the book doesn't mean you could have a high rank in society. There were lots of Muslims and Jews Christians and Jews that were scholars, doctors, and we're good at doing stuff like that. And he started pushing to blend science with religion, saying that the two go hand in hand. And the Muslims were the first people to accept that science and religion, you can still be religious and be scientific. So one of the things that, when we talk about scientists in, Galileo, who was an Italian scientist, argued with the Pope about science. So, And one of the things that's strikingly interesting about this golden age of Islam is that the rest of the world, Europe, has kind of entered a dark age. Now, it's not really that dark. It's just it's not as advanced as what it was under Rome. They don't have the advanced city planning and stuff, but yet other parts of the world are growing in their knowledge and in their learning. Anyway, thank you for paying attention, and stay tuned for part 4.